Hi, thanks for joining me today. Does your stepchild feel sad despite anything you might try to do to make them feel happy about your current situation in the step family? Subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell and I'll let you know every time we post. One of the things that you're really battling with as a step parent is the aftermath of what has happened before. And by definition, if you are a step parent, there is a before with a stepchild, because they will have existed in some kind of family arrangement or with your partner before you arrived. And on your arrival, there will have been, at the very least, a shift. And often, children are having to cope with several shifts that have happened in their lives, which makes them different from children brought up in other family types. Now, this isn't something that we can change. It is just a fact that makes step family life different from other family type lives. And when one's dealing with children who've experienced changes mean that with every change, there are a number of gains and also a number of losses. And when you experience loss, and it can loosely be described as grief, a grief response is what you're often dealing with as a step parent. Now, the first thing I'd like to talk about is what I'd call the bittersweet moment. A child can feel a real sadness for what was and isn't now. And there's nothing that you as a step parent can do to change or alter that. Let me just give you a couple of examples. There was a child that became a stepchild, and he was made, the term after his mother had died, captain of the school football team. Now, that was a heroic moment. He was ecstatic. It was his dream come true. It was what he'd been aiming for forever. It was just like amazing what had just happened to him. But do you know what? He was so sad. Why? Because his mother would never know that he'd been made football captain. So that was a hugely bittersweet moment. There was another time when a university student graduated, and his father and stepmother came to his university graduation, and he had achieved all he'd wanted to do. He'd worked really hard. It was a huge celebratory day. But he was also having a hugely bittersweet moment because his mum wasn't there. Now, I'm not saying that the day wasn't great, but the day was tainted because his mum wasn't there. And you couldn't do anything about that as the step parent. These things happen, and you came along later. But it's when a step parent expects stepchildren to be happy and that you've made a load of effort with something and the day should be good, and yet the child is sad. And sometimes we're talking about these bittersweet moments. And what does one do when one's dealing with a stepchild that is coping with loss? Well, it's very easy to sort of cajole them on. You can distract them and talk about something else, or chivvy them along and start talking about, change the topic of conversation. Or you can sort of try and cheer them up, tell them a few jokes, make them laugh, just change their mood in some way. Or maybe you could come up with some suggestions about how they could get over it and what they could do instead and what might make them help them feel a little bit better. And all of those three suggestions have their place, but they are also really irritating for the stepchild, because sometimes you don't want to be cheered up, and sometimes you don't want to be distracted, and sometimes other suggestions are just not welcome. This is something that they have to deal with. And yet, as a step-parent in a new relationship with your partner, you'll be wanting the stepchildren to sort of come along with you for the ride and be happy in your new family arrangement with your partner. And so it's very tempting to deal with whatever the child's losses are in a way that doesn't move them on and just frustrates you. So what can you do to help a child move on from loss? And I would say this, that it's sometimes helpful for the child just to be able to feel those feelings and not be denied them. You know, it is tough that this has happened to the child. It is difficult to have to go to events when you don't have your mum and your dad there. It is tough when something really good happens and you can't feel happy. So my suggestion would be is to try and become just a listening ear for the child so they can express what they're feeling about something. Because by going to that place where it's hurtful and painful, sometimes if they can express it, then they can release it and move on, and it's less painful and less hurtful, and they can feel validated for feeling that, instead of feeling that they shouldn't be feeling that and they should be making more of an effort and they should be smiling and being happy even if they're not. Sometimes by just going to that place, it can help them a lot for you to be that person who can listen to where they are now. And if you go to that place where they are now and helping them express what they're feeling, can help them release it. Now that's tough, and there's absolutely no reason at all why you, the step-parent, needs to do this. It's not your job, it's not your role, you're not the child's parent, you're only the step-parent. You don't need to do this, but I'm just saying it might be a good place to go for yourself too, because if you can help the child feel less painful and sad about those losses, they will begin to feel happier with you in your company and sharing your life going forward with their parent. It's a thought, and there we are. We run workshops, sessions, and email response service, and we write booklets. Look in the description box below for links to our social media and website.